Hello, boys and girls. We are going to be reading Chapter 3 of Black Beauty today. You should have read Chapters 1 and 2 and taken notes on those already, where we learn about Black Beauty's childhood and the sad events that happened around the divorce Rob Roy and the man who was riding him. So that was Chapter 2. We're going to be reading Chapter 3 today as we find out what it takes to break in a horse. That's a term that we're going to hear. Breaking in means training a horse to be able to have a rider. So horses need to be trained to be able to get used to a saddle on their back, to have a bit and bridle, and all of these things that a horse has to wear for the rider to be able to control him or her, that horse. So we're going to find out what that is like for the horse in Chapter 3, My Breaking In. If you have a book to follow along, that is wonderful. I encourage you to do that. If not, I am going to present my screen again so that you can see what the words are following along with me. So Chapter 3, oops. My breaking in is right here. Okay, so Black Beauty, once again, is our narrator. You're going to hear him describing what it was like for him. I was now beginning to grow handsome. My coat had grown fine and soft and was bright black. I had one white foot and a pretty white star on my forehead, which you can see very clearly in the picture on the front of our book. He's got one white foot and the star on his head. Made him look pretty different than other black horses. I was thought very handsome. My master would not sell me until I was 4 years old. He said lads ought not to work like men, and colts ought not to work like horses till they were quite grown up. Do you all agree with that? Is it good to not have kids or anybody who's young work the same as an adult? I think that's true. I think it's really good for all of you at home to have recess time. You know, we don't have recess at school, but at home, have time to play with your siblings and play with neighbors. Hopefully, if you've got some neighbors or friends, have moments where you're not working as much as your parents might be working. Now, he says, when I was 4 years old, Squire Gordon came to look at me. Do you remember that name, Squire Gordon? We wrote notes about him, right? Squire Gordon, he is the father of the boy that died in the last chapter. So Squire Gordon, that word squire means that he had a lot of land and a lot of people working for him. And it's his son who died in Chapter 2. Squire Gordon is coming because he wants to buy Black Beauty. He wants to purchase him. He examined my eyes, my mouth, and my legs. He felt them all down, and then I had to walk and trot and gallop before him. He seemed to like me and said, when he has been well broken in, he will do very well. My master said he would break me in himself, as he should not like me to be frightened or hurt, and he lost no time about it. For the very next day, he began. So, the farmer who owns Black Beauty is the one training Black Beauty in all of these things. Everyone may not know what breaking in is. Therefore, I will describe it. It means to teach a horse to wear a saddle and a bridle. Now, and to carry on his back a man, woman, or child to go just the way they wish and to go quietly. I'm going to present my screen over to a picture of that saddle and bridle. For those of you who are not familiar with what that looks like. So here is a picture of it on a horse. Okay. There's the saddle and the bridle is around the head. For a young horse, they're not used to that, so that's kind of scary at first. And even the saddle is not something he's used to. The reins here are attached to the bridle and oftentimes a bit in the mouth that actually would pull the horse back. So this whole setup, the saddle, the bridle, the bit, all of that allows the rider to control where the horse goes and to stop it at certain parts. It's like having brakes on a car. But a horse is not like a car, and we're going to see a lot of people treat them as if they don't get hurt and they don't have they don't have all of this energy in the world. Sometimes they get tired. But right now, just thinking about what those saddle and bridle are like. Let's continue. Now, besides this, he has to learn to wear a collar, a crupper, and a breeching, and to stand still while they are put on. Then, to have a cart or a chaise fixed behind so that he cannot walk or trot without dragging it after him. And he must go fast or slow just as his driver wishes. So he has to get used to all of these things on him and have that extra weight of somebody either on his back and possibly also this cart behind him, this extra weight that he's bringing. He must never start at what he sees. To start means jump like that. To be startled comes from this word. So he shouldn't start or get startled, nor speak to other horses. Now, we know that Black Beauty is actually speaking in sentences to these other horses, but in the real world, and this is actually in the world of Black Beauty, but they're really just speaking to each other in neighs, but they're communicating some things. So they must not speak to other horses, nor bite, nor kick, nor have any will of his own, meaning the horse can't choose to do anything. He just has to follow orders from the human. But always do his master's will, even though he may be very tired or hungry. That would be hard to keep doing it, even if you're really tired, to keep either running or walking as long as the driver wants you to. But the worst of all is this. When his harness is put on, he may neither jump for joy nor lie down for weariness. So once that is put on, he has to be standing in place at a proper spot with the cart behind him, and he cannot lay down, sit. Imagine you are running around and you never are allowed to have a moment to sit, as tired as you might be. It sounds difficult. So you see, this breaking in is a great thing. And by great, he means it's a big deal. I had, of course, long been used to a halter and a headstall, and to be led about in the fields in lanes quietly. But now I was to have the bit and bridle around his head. My master gave me some oats as usual, and after a good deal of coaxing, he got the bit into my mouth. Now, a bit is right between the teeth, and it holds the tongue back. And the bridle fixed, but it was a nasty thing. Those who have never had a bit in their mouths cannot think how bad it feels. It's a great piece of cold, hard steel, as thick as a man's finger, to be pushed into one's mouth, between one's teeth, and over one's tongue, with the ends coming out at the corner of your mouth, and held fast there by straps over your head. The straps are holding it in. Under your throat, round your nose, and under your chin, all of these straps everywhere around the horse's head, so that no way in the world can you get rid of the nasty, hard thing. It is very bad. Yes, very bad. At least I thought so. But I knew my mother always wore one when she went out, and all horses did when they were grown up. And so, what with the nice oats, and what with my master's pats and kind words and gentle ways, I got to wear my bit and bridle. So pretty soon, Black Beauty, he definitely does not like this bit and bridle that we see here, but he gets used to them, and he realizes that that's just what horses have to do. Here it is on a horse too, so you can see that bit and bridle. So he realizes that is something that he just has to get used to. So next came the saddle, but that was not half so bad. My master put it on my back very gently. So the farmer's doing a really good job knowing that this is hard for Black Beauty to get used to. You need to do it very gently. While old Daniel held my head, he then made the girths fast under my body, patting and talking to me all the time. Then I had a few oats, then a little leading about, and this he did every day till I began to look for the oats and saddle. Now he's looking forward to wearing the saddle because it's not so bad and he always gets some oats. At length, one morning, my master got on my back and rode me round the meadow on the soft grass. It certainly did feel queer or strange. But I must say, I felt rather proud to carry my master. And so, what with the nice oats and, and as he continued to ride me a little every day, I soon became accustomed to it. So it's not so bad now. The next unpleasant business was putting on the iron shoes. You all know what a horseshoe is like? Let's look that up as well. Now, a horseshoe is this semicircle shape that goes on the horse's actual hoof. So as you can see here, that's the toe inside of a horse. The hoof is the outer protection, like our toenail is kind of the variation of what the hoof is. And then the horseshoe goes along the foot wall, as you can see. And that's what it looks like from the bottom. And it says the frog is the skin there. So that's where the horseshoe goes. So you can imagine that it might be painful for there to be something nailed into your fingernail. That's basically what's happening with this horseshoe. Now, that too was very hard at first, Black Beauty says. My master went with me to the smith's forge. This is a blacksmith who is coming up with the horseshoe, to see that I was not hurt or got any fright. The blacksmith took my feet in his hand, one after the other, and cut away some of the hoof. Remember, hoof is like a fingernail, which is like cutting your fingernails. That's not painful. Black Beauty says, it did not pain me. So I stood still on just 3 legs till he had done them all. Then he took a piece of iron, the shape of my foot, and clapped it on and drove some nails through the shoe quite into my hoof so that the shoe was firmly on. My feet felt very stiff and heavy. This is heavy iron. But in time, I got used to it. So that's not a pleasant thing to do, but he's getting used to that too. And now, having got so far, my master went on to break me to harness. There were more new things to wear. First was a stiff, heavy collar just on my neck. This is different than a collar on our shirt, though. This is much larger. I'll pull up a picture in a minute. Around my neck, and a bridle with great side pieces against my eyes called blinkers. And blinkers indeed they were, for I could not see on either side. And that's the goal of these. They want horses to only pay attention to the road straight in front of them, not get frightened if they see a train over on this side, for example. Next, there was a small saddle with a nasty stiff strap that went right under my tail. That was called the crupper. I hated the crupper. To have my long tail doubled up and poking through that strap was almost as bad as the bit. I never felt more like kicking. But of course, I could not kick such a good master. And he's been taught well by his mother that you do not ever kick. And so in time, I got used to everything and could do my work as well as my mother. Let me take a moment to show you the horse crupper and harness. Okay, so as you can see there's that strap that holds up the tail. That does not look enjoyable at all, does it? Oops. Okay, so I must not forget to mention one part of my training, which I've always considered a very great advantage. My master sent me for a fortnight to a neighboring farmer's who had a meadow which was skirted on one side by the railway. So along the meadow, there's train tracks. Here were some sheep and cows, and I was turned in among them. I shall never forget the first train that ran by. It was feeding quietly near the pales which separated the meadow from the railway when I heard a strange sound at the distance. And before I knew whence it came, with a rush and a clatter and a puffing out of smoke, a long black train of something flew by and was gone almost before I could draw my breath. Now, this is the time before cars, so this was the loudest thing that really came around. I turned and galloped to the far side of the meadow as fast as I could go. And there I stood snorting with astonishment and fear. In the course of the day, many other trains went by, some more slowly. These drew up at the station close by, and sometimes made an awful shriek and groan before they stopped. I thought it very dreadful, but the cows went on eating very quietly and hardly raised their heads as the black frightful thing came puffing and grinding past. So they're used to it by now. For the first few days, I, Black Beauty, could not feed in peace. But as I found that this terrible creature, the creature being the train, never came into the field or really did me any harm, I began to disregard it. Disregard means ignore. And very soon I cared as little about the passing of a train as the cows and sheep did. Since then, I have seen many horses much alarmed and restive at the sight or sound of a steam engine. But thanks to my good master's care, I am as fearless at a railway station as in my own stable. So he realizes this is a good thing because he got used to that noise being around and now he's not afraid of it anymore. Now, if anyone wants to break in a young horse well, that is the way. So notice some of the things that they did. They were kind. His master petted him and got him used to just a little bit at a time, right? Just like all of you as students, you're not going to jump right into algebra when you still need to learn the basics of math before you get to that point. It's kind of like that for Black Beauty. He had to get used to just a little bit at a time and get to harder and harder things. And he's learning it from somebody who's being very kind, coaxing him with some oats, giving him some rewards. So that's the nice way to break in a horse. My master often drove me in a double harness with my mother, so side by side they were carrying a cart, because she was steady and could teach me how to go better than a strange horse. She told me the better I behaved, the better I should be treated, and that it was the wisest always to do my best to please my master. But, said she, there are a great many kinds of men. There are great thoughtful men like our master that any horse may be proud to serve. And there are bad, cruel men who never ought to have a horse or a dog to call their own. That's very sad, but true, that there are some people who treat their animals with a lot of love and respect, and other people who treat animals really terribly. They shouldn't have pets if they're cruel people like that. Besides, there are a great many foolish men, vain, ignorant, and careless, who never trouble themselves to think. That word ignorant means you're not really thinking about anything around you. Thinking just about yourself, and you're not focused on anybody else or anything else around you. That is very dangerous. Can you imagine what it would be like if somebody got into their car and drove wherever they wanted to go and it didn't matter if there were other cars around them? Even if you don't hurt yourself, you're going to hurt everybody else around you. So that is what it's like to have one of these horse owners. They're not thinking through that, like, the horse could get tired. And they need to do things to make things easier on the horse. So these spoil more horses than all. So that's sometimes worse than somebody who's cruel if you're just being thoughtless and you don't really care what's around you. Just for want of sense. They don't mean it, but they do it for all that. I hope you will fall into good hands, Duchess is telling Black Beauty this. But a horse never knows who may buy him or who may drive him. It is all a chance for us. But still, I say, do your best wherever it is and keep up your good name. So, regardless of your circumstances, doesn't matter what your circumstances are, you still can be responsible for good actions yourself. You want to do the best in whatever situation, even if people around you are being mean or being thoughtless. We still want to do the very best we can do. Those are very wise words from Duchess. That is the end of chapter 3. That was, I think, a really good one to set up the story. We're going to hear quite a bit about some masters who are very kind to their animals and some who are thoughtless like this. They're ignorant. And then others who are just downright cruel. They're trying to be mean. So sadly, Black Beauty is going to experience a little of all of those types of owners. Okay, I will see you all later, and I'll have in those chapter notes, chapter 3 is what you would want to write about today. Okay, thank you for watching. Have a great day.